This gun, this 2245 light is in many ways my most favorite shoot things in the backyard gun I own.
I
love
really
this
just
gun.
thought you were going to say shoot things in the back gun. And I'd be like, you're correct.
Shoot things in the back, walk away. What was it? There was two guys. Netflix did the series on like catching killers, and there's two guys in Phoenix going around with a 410 shotgun, just shooting random people at night. One lady identified him, and it was one of the reasons that they caught them. You know where she got hit? In the head with 410 buckshot. Turned around, saw the car, and was just like, "Oh,
did a bee just hit me?
They shot me." And then they drove off, and then she was able to kind of ID the car, and from that they kind of figured out they found the two guys. I forget what it's like, Catching Killers or something on Netflix. It's like this Phoenix one. It's very interesting.
Wait,
410 is full velocity. It's just a light payload, right?
Correct. Yeah.
It's like the buckshot is like 3 pellets.
Something like that.
Or 2 pellets or something.
Yeah, it's like 20.
They can have up to like 6, I think, in 410. It's just the velocity's not great.
What is the gun that Taurus makes?
Judge.
It's like one of their judges, like the circuit judge or something like that. It takes like the 45 ACP, the 45 Colt, and like the 410 or some crazy thing like that. It's called the judge.
The judge.
Yeah.
One of the judges.
Yeah, they need to have
such a crazy gun.
I liked I like that Smith & Wesson came out with the governor. I was hoping like somebody else like Ruger would come out with something like that, the senator. Like it just ever increasing elected offices to do the same terrible job, which is a metaphor in and of itself.
If Ruger did actually come out with one called the senator, because it wouldn't work.
Yeah, it wouldn't work. but it will tell you what stocks to buy or sell 2 days in advance. The senator, everybody. Joining us tonight, 1980s mustache Glock salesman, Steve Koski.
That's funny that you say that. There was another clip of that. You know the Glock 30 video I was in?
Yeah.
There was a video that Rick Neff told me about that clipped that chunk of me in it. It's like generations of Glocks. And they had a clip of me from the other video.
That's awesome.
That's funny.
How long ago was that?
I don't know. 7.
At least a generation ago.
At least a generation and a mustache ago.
Yeah. Whenever Glock was 30 years old.
We're gonna get the 60-year-old, the 60th anniversary, and they're actually gonna play the 30th anniversary video as if it was actual footage from there. So no one will ever be able to guess your name. He will use his friends as meat shields. It's Robert Wyatt.
That's why I like all you big chonky boys.
And Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd is based off of his life story. It's Jared Stepp.
I wish.
Judge Dredd.
I am the law.
Judge Jared.
I am the law.
I'd have so much fun with that.
So anyway, yesterday we went out and we shot another USPSA match. I decided on Thursday or Friday night I was just going to go, oh, Robert's sitting there in the squad. I'll go join him. If I show up, I show up. If I don't, I don't. We sat there and we shot together, and we had a fantastically fun and awesome match with us and some good shooters. And
it was a great day. It was so much fun.
It was. The first 2 stages were the most frustrating thing because in my practice over the past couple weeks, I have decided to stop trying to do something different and just shoot the way I've been shooting for 10 years and try to do that very well. So instead of like trying to like loosen up my firing hand grip and changing like a stance or like the way I present my arms, I'm just like, I'm going to grip the gun really hard like I normally do, and then I'll just work on the trigger speed by moving my trigger finger faster as a way of doing that. And guess what? Everything came back to normal, except for on the first 2 stages where I decided to call every single shot, and I had a mic on a classifier, and then I had a mic, alpha mic no shoot, on a double stack array. But it was incredibly frustrating because I would have all these alphas from calling the shots, and then these things would pop up. But it ended up being a pretty freaking awesome match, and it just kind of like reinvigorated me in that I can shoot this gun absolutely fantastic, and there was nothing wrong with my shooting before. I even pulled 217 splits. Thank you, Practice Score, for
yeah.
Thanks, Practice Score, for keeping track of that. So like, just getting a super good master grip and then stacking the other one on, and it was just an absolute pleasure of a time. And then basically, besides the Apex trigger and the grip job, running all factory parts in the Glock.
Except for that slide.
Yeah, well, the Brownell slide and the Brownell's barrel. I don't think there's much.
I mean, at this point, Tommy, I think my CZ is about as factory as yours is.
Yeah, I mean, this is like as many different parts you could get from not being a Glock and still basically being a factory, like non built up Glock.
That Apex trigger, though, I mean, it feels real good.
I did have a malfunction because I did not do my own advice. I've been trading between guns, and in the meantime, this thing got a little dry. And so when I stuck the 23-round Aaron-Dondo into it, the non-rune follower one, when I stuck that in there and went up and took a shot, I did not get a full stroke of the slide because of the friction.
Oh, that's what happened.
Yeah, and so I kicked it out, went out there, checked the gun, I was like, oh, this thing's pretty bone dry. Robert gave me some of the cherry bomb stuff, slathered it up, and then it ran perfectly the rest of the time. So
Tom, I want you to say Arredondo.
Aaron-Dondo.
No, Arredondo.
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 Thank you.
Not Aaron-Dondo.
It's not Aaron-Dondo. It's Arredondo.
Arredondo. Arredondo.
I was just going off what Tommy said, and I've been calling him Aaron-Dondo.
Now I don't even know. In this conversation, I just forgot which one was the correct one. Arredondo.
Arredondo. A-R-R-E Dondo.
Okay.
I think we should just add ins everywhere. Aaron-Dondo.
Aaron-Dondo.
Tom Nelson's having a
strong club. Yeah, so we went out there, we shot it. Me and Robert got to sit there and shoot together, in which we pretty much... I had the courtesy of going third, so which means I shot in front of Robert. And every target...
Two
or three stages.
3 stages, yeah.
Every time I effed up on a target and Robert would do it, you can see in the video where he really pauses and slows down an extra 0.3 of a second to get both hits on the same target I missed. And then he would come out of it and be like half a hit factor higher than me because Tom missed that one. So he literally would pop, and then moved on and started shooting everything else. And I was just like, how dare you?
I ain't stepping in that pile.
Nope.
Yeah, but Tommy got me back because eventually he was behind me, and so he watched all of my screw-ups and did. And then I do not. What was the stage? It was like stage 4. You put down just a master of a run, and it was just like, damn, that was good.
Well,
who won?
Tommy by 5 points.
No way.
It was.
What's that in percent?
When I looked at it last, it was like 81.4 to 80.7. It was super close,
like 0.5% or something.
Oh, yeah. It was such
good job, guys. What a battle.
So even with so like not even caring about the speed, because the one thing I noticed from last time when I was shooting with Jared, I tried to push the speed way too much, and so with only
Jared will do that to you.
Paying attention,
I psyched Tom out.
Oh yeah, you did. Only
you
through just
a lot of people out, Jared, especially the new shooters.
Yeah,
I can do that. I can do that.
That's always one of my favorite things.
And so just by paying attention to the vision, I actually noticed that my stage times, like I was flying, my stage times, like even with the mics and stuff like that on the couple stages, like my stage times were really low. And then when there was this one that had like 8 pieces of steel, a bunch of partials, and they are all IPSC targets. And we sat there and shot it, and I shot it in like 14.5 seconds. I went 1 for 1 on every piece of steel. And on this kind of larger stage, I shot a 9.1 hit factor. Just putting it out. And so it was
good. It was real good.
So it was
9.1 hit factor.
Yeah, it was a good time. I really had fun. Robert?
Yeah, me too, dude. It was a great day. I didn't sleep like at all the night before, and I'm like, I want to go home. It felt like week 1 of SLPSA all over again. But no, we shot that classifier, and I shot.
But you shot your fancy gun.
I did. I gotta shoot the Shadow 2 with the
new one with the coating and everything.
All the pretty coating.
Ooh.
And this is actually, if I had to start all over again, I think knowing what I know now, I would actually buy a stock CZ without an optic ready, and I would send it off to Impact and have them cut it, because I really like how low that sits. In the scheme of things, it probably doesn't matter, but it is amazing how well that just sits on there. And
what dot do you have on it?
It's just the standard SROs. I've liked them.
How big of a dot?
It is a 5 MOA.
5.
And it works. It works really well. I mean, there's bigger dots, there's littler dots, but this one works for me. And fundamentally, I mean, Dave Blanton will always give me crap about this. I hang on to the SRO because the damn thing just
ding,
keeps
ding,
working.
ding. Everyone take a shot.
I had to say it.
What's crazy is, like, you can buy the optics ready CZ Shadow and pay $75 to CZ to get an optics plate, or you can pay Primary Machines $75 more and get it direct milled and get it lower. I mean, there's
Impact,
a lot of
Impact.
Well, I was just looking at Primary Machine because they popped up too. They advertise their Shadow 2 milling too. But yeah, it's basically a pittance in the long run of getting a better optics cut for the gun.
Yeah, the biggest downside is that you tend to be stuck with that optic mount, that solution. However, I was talking to Jason Kais. Jason actually does work with Impact, and he said they've come up with a plate system so that even if you've actually had one cut, they can actually take and put a plate on there, so you could then replace it. And so that's pretty cool.
Dude, everybody is coming out with their own damn plate. It's driving me insane.
Yeah.
Well, Springfield, I think, is probably the smart one in the way that that new echelon with the pins. I don't know how it works, but I saw the pictures of it. It's really promising.
So the drop-in recoil bosses. Essentially, they have locking pins. They're flat slide. They have holes in it. You drop in the recoil bosses where you want them. Then you put it on there. Then the screws go into the holes that are set up for the screws. And so essentially you have the universal pattern like a Shadow Systems would have, except for this one, instead of using a spacer, and it has spacers too, you actually have the recoil bosses. And the big thing with the recoil bosses, like, it gives something for the optic to go off to, but what it also does is that when you drops it on, it helps center the optic on the cut. Because without the recoil bosses, your optic can be a little askew, and then you're just basically trying to, like, center it and then tighten the screws down there to kind of hold it in that position. Where, like, on my RMR or on this thing, if I pull the optic off and put it back on, I'm still going to have like a 95% zero because of the bosses and the way that the bosses center the optic. So
yeah, I think I'm convinced that the plate system is nothing more than a stopgap until they do what Springfield did here, or I just think that's going to be the future, because having to use an intermediary to lock it into the gun it's a stopgap. That's all it is.
It's the MOS system and the M&P system. Like, they're not.
No. The M&P's nice.
The M&P's nice. It has the plastic spacer kits that they drop on top, and so it's not that bad. But when you're actually looking at, like, places like the Prodigy has, where you have the plate that slides in and goes into a dovetail and then mounts correctly, like, there's other ways of reinforcing those plates besides stronger screws, blue Loctite, and just flat on the slide.
But I would say I want as few screws as possible in the slide.
Yep.
So, for instance, I would actually argue that the M&P core mounting system, how it has all the screw holes in the slide
itself, yep.
And then the recoil bosses, instead of being nice, shiny little stainless steel plugs like on the Prodigy, on the new Echelon, they're just a plastic fill-in. And I like that more than, for instance, on the Prodigy, even though they're using the Agency Arms AOS fancy pants system that clicks in there and it's nice.
Yeah, it is pretty nice.
Have had an AOS system break on me.
How did it break, dude?
So, the two little nubs that come out where you screw in?
Yes.
Tom, what's your favorite word? What's your favorite word for
a spoke?
Unknown?
What for what?
You have a funny word for a little dongle thingy.
With the dinguses or what?
The dingus.
The dingus.
I knew
that
it would say the dingus where the dingus.
Well, it's the
sticks
dingus
out.
and the dongus.
And the schlongus.
Oh.
That's after
So
dark.
I want as few screws as possible in the slide, because I mean I've had an AOS break on me. I've had a Glock MOS plate. I had lots of those break, especially at agency level. We see a lot of failures with those.
Mm-hmm.
And so I definitely think the Prodigy, I mean not the Prodigy,
Echelon.
the Echelon is a good step in the future, but I'm curious about it because the Gen 1 Staccatos actually use that same system. The original Staccato P Duo had the same thing, where they actually had these tiny little recoil bosses that you could plop in to the little holes, and they got away from that. And I don't know why they got away from it, but I'm curious if Springfield's going to have the issues, because I imagine the only reason why Staccato got away from that is because they were having issues. And now they went to the traditional plate system with Dawson helping out. But I thought that those recoil bosses were super clever, and then they got away from it. So I wonder if Echelon's going to have the same similar issue. I don't know.
The actual only answer to this entire problem with the plates and everything else is literally the acro and the Steiner footprint. Mill the slide like it's an M13 rail almost, with one slot, drop it in, screw it in from the side, done. That was the way. But the only reason we're playing this game is because the people were hijacking RMRs and putting them on slides. And then that's when we got to go top down, we got to go bottom up, or we got to put a plate on it to adapt it, to put it on. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't been the best system. And so the enclosed optics that grip onto the side, like the 509 and Steiner and CHPWS optics, that's
after the match was over. I took the gun home, and I actually noticed. So I've taken after Jared, and I actually witness mark all of my screws. I noticed the screws had actually walked out a little bit. So it's one of those like confirmations of, yes, you should witness mark your screws. Because as soon as I look down and I'm like, oh yeah, I got to fix that. I'll pull them apart and then put a different kind of Loctite on there.
Steve's over here wondering, do I have to witness mark my irons?
Oh yeah,
pencil mark.
There's a lot to be said for just a little pencil and witness marking just about anything that can move on a gun. It's very smart, Robert.
Yeah. I'm really happy I did. I'm really happy I did on that.
Anyways,
I'm in love with this gun. I'm actually thinking of sending my other one back to him and having him.
Wow, somebody's been working overtime.
Someone's not worried about a strike. Anyways, this cat who's worried about a strike. I bought an optics plate for this PDP. I just kind of want to screw around with it, and so
fool!
It's a pretty nice little gun. I do not plan on using it that much, but I just figured I would see what it does. I mean, it's kind of nice in the hand. It does have its stupid problems, like it doesn't fire out a battery, and then it goes dead, and you gotta rack it again to get it to shoot, unlike a real pistol, where you take it out of battery, you pull the trigger, and you put it back in the battery, and it actually fires.
Yeah, Steger was talking to somebody who mentioned that. I'd never heard of that before. That's really interesting.
Well, I brought it up on this show, but no one has to listen to me about it.
I just didn't remember it. I happen to be burning past it. I apologize.
But it's one of those things that's kind of known about it. But they're pretty. They feel good in the hand. They got excellent little triggers. So why not see how it sits there and it shoots and whatnot. So we'll see how that goes.
Why not buy a gun for 3 or 4 weeks, Tom? Tom never saw a gun.
Traded for it. Didn't buy it.
There you go.
Traded up for it. IDPA, trading points for time. Steven.
I had an interesting conversation before the match. Someone brought up one of these Glock performance triggers, and he asked me how mine worked. I said, fine. And he said his worked fine for like 1,000 rounds, and then he's starting to get slow, like a delayed reset, where it takes it like half a second or something to reset.
To like go back into battery, or the trigger
before you can fire again.
Weird.
I was like, man, I'd put that thing in a box and send it back and ask another one. But
because the Gen 5 clips onto the trigger bar inside like that, right? Like it clips onto that, so it goes back, so it fires, it releases, and then that spring is supposed to push back sending the rest of the trigger bar forward, which would reset the gun. So I wonder if it's because the other part is too is like those things can like pop out of out of that spring, and then that spring can get kind of janked up in that housing where it doesn't want to push back on it, which is kind of interesting, because that's the only thing. Like before, you would have the striker hit the back of the cruciform and shove the whole entire trigger assembly forward, and now this one you're waiting on that entire reset mechanism, that spring, to push it forward. So
doesn't it come with 2 springs, Steve, where you have like a silver spring and a red spring, and one can make it a little bit more of aggressive reset, or is that the Timney?
I don't think so, but I don't recall.
No, because the Timney has this screw.
Timney has a extra spring.
The Timney can also be screwed up on depth with how the screw drops into there. But yeah, how did you shoot with said performance trigger? Did you continue last week's experience of Steve Koski domination?
You can't shoot that trigger in stock service pistols. So I shot my Glock 17 with a stock trigger, and I did okay. I remember last year when I shot that classifier stage at the state match, and I shot it down 0, and that's pretty much what kept me in the lead for stock service pistol.
Yeah.
Well, that did not happen yesterday because somebody has not like just gone out and shot drills and fundamentals and watched the sights line up and shot clean trigger presses, Anyway, so and then I dropped a bunch of points on the standard stage just because you see other people going bam, blam, 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 at 15-yard targets, and you think, oh, I could do that fast with my iron sights. Well, you can't. And then I had another stage where it was an 18-round stage, and I just miscounted my rounds. So I dumped the mag on the ground, and then as it's falling to the ground, I see some bullets in the top of the magazine. And I'm like,
no.
Uh-oh. So then I pick it up, and I don't stow it, and I finish the stage. I wasted 5 seconds and got a procedural anyway.
Yeah.
It's just so bad.
Wait, how did you pick it up and not stow it?
Well, if you pick it up and like you hold it in your hand when you fire your last shot, you have to stow the magazine.
It's got to be in a pocket or the waistline.
Why?
A waistline or a mag.
Those are the rules.
Because that's the rule.
It's to prevent you from doing bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
Bam, 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 bam.
Right.
Bam, 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 bam. Yeah, oh gosh, yeah. That is fun. Well, here's what I don't like. So like last week, you were banging 15-yard targets with no care in the world, slaying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a difference. Like going back to the trigger that has the rise and the 1 pound firmer trigger.
Yeah.
I think I need to just stay with that gun for a little bit because it didn't go quite so well yesterday.
Is the Glock performance trigger noticeably different in the way it visually looks than the
or feels?
Oh yeah, it's clearly not a stock trigger.
Okay.
It's clearly not stock.
I didn't know if it was one of those things that like it just looks really close. Or
could you hold on
if
a
you have
second.
eyes to see.
Can you?
If you know what a stock trigger looks like, you would not let that go through a inspection.
For sure.
Can you bang out the shoe?
Yeah, I think you can.
Bang out the shoe, put a round shoe on that bad boy?
There's a potential to put a stock shoe on it and do that.
But IDPA, they'll disassemble your gun.
But you can, as long as the gun looks, as long as the trigger looks stock externally, that's legal.
Yeah, because this Apex kit,
that's true.
as long as I just change the shoe, legal. Not the rest of the parts of the gun, of course, if it was SSP. But
I remember we shot a match down in California, and we go into equipment, and that mother effer, he took the frickin' CZ apart. And I'm like, what the hell, bro?
Someone's got to.
I got to make sure the firing pin block works.
Someone's got to hold you CZ clowns accountable, and God bless you, sir. Jared, go ahead.
At the end of the day, we brought the 500 mag out, and about a half dozen people took me up on the light round, heavy round.
Oh, sweet.
So that was pretty fun.
$50 later.
No, everyone's like, "Can I pay?" No, this is just for fun. We're having fun. Please shoot it and enjoy yourself.
Did you at least bring like a watermelon to blow up?
No, but one guy did.
Catch the seeds.
He took his heavy round at this rock out there.
Oh gosh.
And, took like 16 pieces off the rock.
Grenaded it.
Raining down they're grenading down in the bay like 5 seconds later. It was kind of.
So that you're like, this kids is why we wear eye protection.
That is one of my favorite things to do. Like, if you're just going around shooting, like, there's one thing, to be said for practicing and training and trying to get better, et cetera, et cetera. But, god damn it, if you go out to the West Desert with the boys and you get some shotgun slugs and some AR and some varmint rounds, and you get to shoot some soda cans that are full, apples, fruits, all that good stuff, and they just explode. It is so much fun and so satisfying shooting a watermelon with a shotgun slug, and I can't imagine with a 500 mag.
So kind of the early days where you'd line up the milk jugs. You'd go out there with like 24 milk jugs full of water. You'd line 10 of them up. You'd get down behind it with a 500 mag, and you'd see if you could catch the bullet. It's in like the 9th jug.
Well, this is the kind of science we as people are prone to, because literally we're in Macy's yesterday, and Mike likes to know what I'm carrying, so he's like, I'm carrying my 220. He's go, oh, that's a 45. And then we get like a case of Rockstars, and we put it down, and he goes, how many Rockstars would it take to stop that 45, Dad? And then I go like, well, it's very hard to stop the damn things is that physics doesn't let us play this game, because as soon as we start hitting something that it flies off or it tumbles down into the ground, it's like we never get to hear the answer. Like we'll stop.
With milk jugs, you can catch some.
You can catch some.
It's not guaranteed, but you may catch some.
But
set them up like bowling pins. Just have a wide lead and just have him lay prone, shoot the first Rockstar with his 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, and it'll blow up like $50 worth of monitors.
And you get so wet.
And it'd be great.
It just sends that shower skyward.
So the one thing I don't like seeing big bullets shot at is flat surfaces and rocks. 11 years ago, I met a guy who 7 years before that had shot the 50 cal, and the 50 cal had bounced back and then took in his headphones off. There's a famous video on the internet of that guy. He lays on. Yeah. And I actually went out there to Vernal, and we were like in a rifle class when I was back in the gun use days, and I met the guy who got his headphones taken off.
That dude was in Utah?
Yeah. And so he was shooting
like the Resurrection Tour.
he was shooting a steel plate that he wanted to turn into a coffee table, and it had fallen down, so it hit and then sent it back, and it came back with a little bit more energy than a full house 45 ACP. And so when I see people shooting rocks at the range, I kind of be like, let's not do that. Please don't do that. Please.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm not super jazzed about LTD.
The rock burns?
LTD is pure rock.
Yeah,
yeah. This was in the Rock Bay. You know what bay I'm talking about.
All of them?
Oh, yeah. This is in the bay that before they dug it out, you would shoot half the stage, then you would run up and then shoot the other half of the stage down into. You remember those days?
I remember those. Those were fun stages.
Yeah.
I very much like sending the lead in one direction. I do not want to see some of that coming back my way.
Yeah.
It's still fun to watch rocks blow up.
If you catch a 500
Sorry.
If you catch a 500 Magnum ricochet to the face, at least be wearing a Dominant Defense belt. Go out looking good. Check them out, dominantdefense.com. Use promo code PARA10, save 10% off your concealment belts or your Mach 1 speed belt needs, the best belts out there. Our local club is at least probably 50% Dominate Defense out there with them, so it's wonderful. Yes,
and for good reason. I actually got rid of all my other belts. The Dominate's just the one to have.
Yeah, it is the belt to rule the most, Jared.
Remember that one time you got shot in the nads with a 45 at
Yes,
Barry's?
And you were standing right next to me because God knew I could take it and you couldn't. Yeah, I remember that.
Was he wearing a Dominate belt? Because
that's
what we're talking about right now.
I was wearing the big old fat Safari. Remember the old 2-inch Safari Land ELS belt? I was wearing that thing, and it just happened to miss the 2 inches of that, drop down another 3 inches, and a 45 slug, still hot, bounced off my right testicle and fell on the ground. And Jared was standing right next to me, and I just go, huh! I just kind of lean over, and it just dropped right at my feet, and I was just like, oh my gosh. What the heck is it? I think it's. I still have it. I think it's on safe.
You saved the bullet.
I pick. Well, why? Like,
You kind of have to.
at that point, you're already bent over. You might as well pick it up. You know, you're
How many
already.
times have you taken a
You're already
45 to the
bent
nads?
over.
It's
Oh.
like the worst things are like magnums at rocks, and then like when you see the open guy take on a plate rack, and you know it's like Montana Gold, and you're just like, oh my gosh, here come the jackets. I remember getting stuck right here in the elbow with a full jacket sticking out like it was a ninja star. Like I was like, like I blocked a ninja star, it was just sticking out deep, and then you go to pull it, and I was like, oh, I gotta pull harder. And
Yeah.
you're like,
I remember plucking some things out of my forehead at bowling pin matches.
oh yeah. It's just,
Those pins shoot back.
Yeah.
it's like the police berms up where Jared trains is like when those traps don't get emptied out, you shoot in, the berms shoot back. I remember doing a Masada Youth group class, and we're sitting there shooting, and a kid shot one in, went into the berm, a 45 slug came out and hit him in the 2 front teeth. He started bleeding from his 2 front teeth and got him pushed in.
Good times, good times.
Yes. Even
You go
inanimate
to the
objects.
range and come away with a minor injury, then you got something to talk about. You got some bragging rights.
Yeah, it's
He's
real.
fine.
It's real stuff
He's
from the
fine.
streets. Also, Precision Holsters, check them out. Use promo code PARA10. And Rune Tactical. Bump that thing up, especially with your Glocks, with your Aaron-Dondo. No.
I think that the funniest thing
Arredondo.
yesterday was
Arredondo. That's right.
Arredondos.
Let me write
Dude.
it down.
We shot that one stage where you were gonna dump, what was it, 20, 21 rounds at the final position, and I like behind me I hear him. I hear Junior talking to some people, and they're like, oh yeah, you need more rounds in the gun. He's like, no, Rob, he's got that one gun. What, with the rune follower? Yeah. Turn on, like, you want to borrow one? He's like, can I?
Yeah.
Sure, buddy.
Yeah,
right on.
I get to start my Glock off when I need to at 25 rounds, and that's a 24 plus 1. That's a big advantage. And so, yep, keep the gun pretty well lubricated. Make sure it runs fully stocked up with that, and then you're set to go.
And make sure you're shooting a little bit more than minimum power factor ammo, because when the gun's that tight,
Yep.
and you're shooting 126 power factor, it just might not cycle.
Yep. Rune Tactical,
Chunk.
not for the bitches. That's the official model. Stack that stuff up, street hot. Street
That's why
hot,
we got
everybody.
154 power factor, baby.
What were we talking about? We were talking about making power factor, and we were talking about what you used to do to make power factor. It was like, put oil in the barrel, get a Gen 3
yeah.
Glock 34 that has polygonal rifling, point the gun up into the sky, pray 3 times,
Shake it a little bit.
shake it a little bit, point forward, pull the trigger.
Magnum
Bar-
primer.
Get anything you possibly can to get that thing up past chrono. So, all right.
Questions.
Telegram, questions, answers, maybe.
Let's see. Maybe a question for the show. If you have a trans competitor that signs up in lady category, do you inform them to move to men's division because that is what is in their pants? Just the same as having a frame mounted optic in your open gun.
Well, the rule is to be in any category, you have to
prove that you're in that category.
you have to prove that you're in that category.
I would just ask the match director. I would not have that conversation
Correct.
with the shooter.
And
Let
if-
the ma-
No, I would
let
not.
the
That,
range
not
master,
yet.
Let the range master deal with that.
Let the range master do it, and if it's something that people feel like is something that's going to happen, then enforce the categories, all the categories, at the same time. Senior, let's see it. Super senior, let's see it. Law
Wrists
enforcement,
above belt.
let's see
Get
it.
your wrists up. Get your wrists down.
I told
Robert.
you taught him
No,
a lesson.
you
His wrists were below the belt the whole day. Yeah, you taught him.
He's got his left hand all cocked up there halfway to his nipples. Yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
It's his right. It's his. Robert Stance's left hand's low. The right hand, because that's his non-dominant hand, is like there. It's like
A little T-Rexy.
he's getting ready to go. I don't know. I don't even know what to do with these freaking gorilla arms. I don't like. It's impossible for me not to like. If I have these things above the
Tom's
belt,
itching his kneecaps at the start signal.
I can. The most ridiculous thing I find is that my elbows go to my waist. That's how I start.
You must
When
love
you die,
push-ups.
we're going to put your skeleton in
Dude.
a museum, and we're going to call it Australopithecus.
Push-ups and pull-ups, they're marathons for me. They're sprints for everybody else. Marathons. I got to go through the whole range.
Let's see.
I would argue that personally, if you're having issues with that at a local match, I would honestly say I would rather just get rid of all the category/classes at a local match and just say, no, we're not doing those anymore here.
You can do you can do that.
They don't do anything at a local match.
Does anyone even care at a local match?
nothing.
I've never heard of anyone
No.
caring at a local match.
Yes.
So
Yeah, we had this issue come up last week.
that's my argument. It's like, look, if you're
With a
really worried about
transgender
this at a
person?
local,
Yeah. Mhm.
Yep.
just wipe it and say, you know what, we're not doing these anymore. And then at majors, we can verify everyone's status. We can verify, oh, you want to be military? You got your, what, DD-214, motherfucker? Let's see it. If you want to sign up for the law enforcement division, let's see them
Arrest
creds.
powers.
And
I mean, sometimes when I go to Walmart, I park in that slot that says for our friends
Handicap
in law
only?
enforcement. And I just run in as fast as I can. And
You know how many lives I sold selling Glocks in the 1980s?
I qualify for the blue label, so I believe I count in the law
Law,
enforcement.
law enforcement adjacent. It's like my mom. My mom has a handicap sticker, and so when we're not in her car, she has the handicap thing all along. And we go to the beach, and she's just like, "No, just park there." And I was just like, "Well, we still have to pay." And she goes, "No, we don't. We don't have to pay." And I was like, "Mom, it says up there, all visitors, including the handicap, must pay." And then she's just like,
no, we don't.
"I don't think that's true." It's like, "Okay, Mom, I'll pay."
Watch and learn.
My favorite thing about those people is then they call the cops and they're like, someone stole my car. It's like, no, it got towed. And they're like, nah, I didn't have to pay. And you're like, somebody thought you did.
Yeah, so somebody who owned the property thought you did.
So someone disagrees with you and
We-
they took your car.
All right, let's hammer these questions. We got a 4:30 hard out.
Yeah. Let's see. Have any of you tried learning from the House of Speed? And if so, what did you learn? The House of Speed is John Batista.
John Bautista.
Oh,
I
was like the
Robert would be the
Well,
closest to this.
This is like Joe Rogan and Andy Erickson. I mean, you have Joe Rogan, and then you have the Joe Rogan of South Dakota, and that's Andy Erickson. See, we have the House of Speed, and then we have the Salt Lake City House of Speed called Jared Stepp.
I would just call it the Speed House.
must go faster.
Which I think for some people that approach can be very, very effective. You can also see a lot of John Bautista's videos on YouTube on like the Tactical Hive. He did a few videos with them, which are pretty excellent. The one thing I would say about that is there is a lot of stuff about correct movement you could do, and especially like John's very good at getting into positions correctly and setting up your base correctly to be explosive and to move. The one thing I would say about that is none of that ever overrides the vision, and I don't even think John would even say that. You can outrun bad hits.
Trust me. Bullshit.
I think he can outrun Charlie's. The deltas and the mics you can't
ever
outrun.
seen John shoot. John is the epitome of the idea that half the points and
Half
half
the
the time
time
is
is-
the same hit factor. I mean, like if there's a poster, like that's him, because he will come into a match and he'll shoot that match like 40, 50, 60 seconds faster than everybody with like Alpha Delta, Delta Mike, Delta Charlie. But by gosh, it was fast.
I like it. I like
House
it a
of
lot.
Speed. Go check it out.
No, but I mean, John is very right in the sense that you need to. I mean, if you ever feel like you're under control, you're going too slow.
Well,
And you need to be shooting faster than you think, because if you don't do that, then eventually you're just going to be turtle.
Yep.
so this is something I actually go over quite a bit at my class, and I just did a class today actually, and it was fun. But nice 10 people.
Waypoint training. Look on Instagram.
Yeah, Waypoint Training. The logo says "Shoot Faster" on it. And this is something I actually talk about quite a bit with the guys, because everybody, especially in the law enforcement world, it's like, oh, you got to slow down to get your hits. And, oh, no, so I shot this drill and I had 3 Alpha, 3 Charlie. I need to slow down and I need to do this. And I say, no, don't slow down. Never slow down. What you need to do is you need to be in more control. Can you do that at the same speed? And they go quiet for a second. They go, yeah. I'm like, then fucking do it. Don't go slower. Be more in control. And if you say that to yourself and you say, okay, I'm going to do whatever, a Blake drill, and I can do this in 2 seconds and get, 2 Charlies. Do you want to do it in 2.2 seconds and get all alphas? Or do you want to do it again, have more grip, have more control, and do it in 2 seconds and get 6 alpha? You want to do it in 2 seconds and get 6 alpha. Don't slow down. More in control. That's what you want to do.
Can I have a question slot, Robert?
Send it. Do it right now.
What happened with people? What happened with people getting bumped off a Facebook page?
So USPSA decided to advertise their surveys that they were putting out, and people brought up things that were not on the surveys, or suggestions for new equipment rules or new rules for the sport. And generally, if you brought up Yi-Min Lin's name, you were then kicked off of the Facebook page.
Yeah.
So Jared.
They had a thing, and I said, do you also have a survey question regarding, like, how did I word it? Kicking out the popularly elected president, Yi-Min Lin?
Okay.
Do you
And
have
so
a
they
survey,
dropped
if that's
anyone
okay?
who got on that bandwagon got punted from the
blocked.
page.
So now...
From the
so
USPSA
now my
page, like
primary-
forever?
Yep.
Yeah.
What
from
the
web.
hell?
Well,
my primary account is now blocked.
they don't like criticism very much. So
No.
Apparently.
From Jared, can the surveys go over kicking out the popularly elected president over imagined slights? At which point I responded, additionally, can we do a survey to discuss making DNROI a term-limited position so DNROI no longer has the sole power to remove that sitting USPSA president based on his documented personal bias against said USPSA president? I guess they didn't like that.
And then I just simply asked, can we have a new rule that if you win a division and McManus doesn't like you, can he DQ you and remove all your certifications? We'll call it the Yi-Min Lin rule. And that.
And then you got punted too?
I got punted too.
Oh,
well, at
way
that
to
point,
go.
I was just like, all the
Robert,
cool
are you
kids
still
are
on the page?
I still
So
have
the
it for
main
some
troll
reason.
is still there.
because they know. Well, the one thing is too is that he's a section coordinator, so then they got to sit there and go like, gosh, damn it.
Can we ban our section
no,
coordinator?
no. They've torched other section coordinators for sure. They totally
Okay.
have.
Okay,
They did
sorry
it
to
to the
derail
president.
everything. Back to your regularly scheduled questions, Robert. Give us a couple more questions.
Hang on here. Let me bounce back over to it.
It's a valid question.
Let's see. Why is Steel Challenge not supported more by USPSA shooters?
It's boring. It's really fun about the first 5 times you do it, and then it's not so exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I think it also comes down to USPSA shooters will shoot USPSA as much as they possibly can, and the other part is too is when ammunition and primers are very limited, you will spend those primers and that ammunition in USPSA or practicing for USPSA. I
So-
think that the days of go shoot what you want because ammunition's 6 cents a round and screw around as much as you want with all your free time is kind of gone.
Well, I mean, if you take a standard 6-stage match, there's 5 targets in Steel Challenge for each array, I guess. I'm guessing a little bit. You got like 150, 175 rounds. That's a USPSA match.
Right. It's just the
So-
excitement, the novelty factor can kind of get a little stale. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It can be pretty fun, and some people really get into it, but it's not everyone's jam.
For sure.
My
No, it's
biggest
the same
problem with
go
it
ahead.
is I shoot USPSA because I don't want to set up a whole damn stage by myself and do all this stuff and do all this work to set up the stage and do the stage. I like having all this stuff that I don't want to set up. Whereas a steel challenge, I can go set up steel challenge or an equivalent thereof at a freaking indoor range, and I can do that practically anywhere. If I want to go to SLPSA as an RO and set up a 1 USPSA target or 2 USPSA targets, and then set up 4 scoring zones on that area, and that's practically a steel challenge stage. And I think that's, if I want to go shoot stationary at stationary targets, I can go do that and shoot through 200 rounds in 30 minutes versus me having to do that and shoot through 200 rounds in 4 or 5 hours. So it's not a good usage of time, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, the one thing I do like about Steel Challenge that I wish could be brought into some other stuff is the idea of throwing one string out. I think
the mulligan.
Well, I think USPSA stages. Let's say you had like an 11 round. You had a match with like 11 round USPSA stages, and then you literally scored, taped, shot it again, scored, taped, and then you kept your best one out of those. Like imagine a 3-stage match, which was literally the best you got, and your best 50 rounds out of these 3 stages.
That would be fun for a one-off match.
Yes.
But I really like the idea that everything counts.
Yep.
It's all on the clock.
Yep.
That's a fun way to run a sport.
I mean, to drop one of the stages, that would hurt a lot of people's feelings who go and play the practice score competitor game of, if I didn't have like 3 mics and 4 mics, well, did you give that advantage to all the other people that you would have beat?
No, because then you wouldn't have beat them. Duh, Robert.
Exactly.
That's why we do it.
Get out of my fantasy draft, Robert.
Right. All right, let's see. Trying to get a new match going. There's been plenty of participation so far, but very few people help with the match. How do you get enough help without burning out the people that regularly help? I have no idea. I don't know.
I've been trying to figure that out for 5 years.
Yeah, honestly, if you figure it out, send me a message because. I mean, at the indoor match, I mean that's the problem. What can you offer people? I can't really offer them money. The best I can generally offer them is, hey, if you come help me with my match, then I'm not going to make you pay for it. That's really all I got. I don't have anything else.
And the only other thing I can think of is like the Brian Gilmore technique, which is like you have a super awesome, kind, charismatic leader who's like a born leader who just brings people in and they want to support the organization. And that will get a lot of support and a lot of help and kind of build camaraderie and some team feelings around the core 10, 15 people.
Yeah.
But you can't just say, "Oh, I want to make that happen." Well, it takes it takes a Brian Gilmore to do stuff like that.
Yeah. Let's see. From the master builder himself, Philip Stratsma, what dry and wet fire drills do you use to increase the speed of acquiring the dot, both from the draw and after moving from array to array?
Been working on this a lot. And the one thing I told one of the guys who's been asking me about dot because he's just getting into the red dot. The best way to acquire the dot from the start on the draw is start with the dot on the target and then bring it back down towards like the holster. And then bring the gun back up to the dot, watch the dot, and then bring it back down. And when you start with the dot on the target, as you bring it back down, you're creating that shortest path to the holster in both holstering and then drawing the gun. And that can kind of do that 50 times. You're going to be a long way ahead. And the other part about acquiring the dot is as you build that up, the thing to acquiring a dot after a reload or something else is have the mindset of getting the gun up. If you have the mindset of getting the gun up, when you get the gun up, you will try to acquire the dot. I think what happens to a lot of people is they get right into the position, then bring the gun up, and then are searching for what they need to find to shoot. So work on finishing a reload, changing a position, immediately transferring the gun up to the target, and that will give you more time to sit there and find the dot. But definitely point the gun at things a lot, and you will find the dot starts showing up without even thinking about it.
Yeah, one of the things. So at this match Thursday that we did, we had a handful of ladies that came out, and there was a lady who was apparently it was like her first time using a dot, and so classic thing. I mean, she puts it out there, wiggles it around, fires, wiggles it back around, trying to find it. And so I took her off, and I said, okay, exactly what you said, Tommy. Like, put the gun out. Do you have the dot? Yeah. Okay, now bring it back down. Now put it back out. But to add on to what you said, what I said to her was, pay attention to how it feels in your hands when the dot correctly shows up.
Yep.
Because whenever you throw that gun out, if you don't have that feeling, odds are the dot's not going to be there. And so kind of work towards that.
And backup irons can be a crutch for a lot of people to kind of get that. And the other part is too is like, as you're newer to the dot, even if you're not using the backup irons, there's a higher chance you will F up the operation of the dot. Too low, off, battery compartment not tapped down. And so when you bring the gun up, you have the backup irons not because the dot failed, but because you failed the dot. Fortunately,
all of this stuff can be done dry fire.
Yep.
There's absolutely zero reason to do this in live fire. The one thing that I always tell people to do is
you have to test it.
Yeah, you'd have to test it. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, stand up in your normal shooting stance, and then when you get that and you feel confident about that, go find a corner and do a hard IDPA lean around that corner and see if the dot still comes back. Because what happens for most people is when they make that hard lean, their hands shift and they suddenly lose the dot, and they're hunting for it again. That's why it's all, to me, I always say it's always about the feeling. Are you continually holding the gun and you have that correct feeling as you present around the corner? And if you do, I have found that your success rate goes up. The other thing is just to get a big honking frickin' dot and window so that you'll always find it. That certainly helps.
Yep.
Let's go ahead.
Oh, just the occluded dot too. There's one thing when you're training, like you can do basically 100% of your dry fire with the occluded dot, because what it'll also teach you while you're referencing and then bringing it back down is having a target focus the whole time. So it's a feeling, it's where to focus, and
oh yeah, that was the other thing I talked to that lady about, because I was like, are you looking at the dot or are you looking at the target? Because she had glasses on and she had tape over, and she's like, well, I can't focus, so I have to look to the side. And I'm like, well, with a dot, you just look at the target. And she looked at me like I was Jesus reincarnated or something like that. My mind was blown. Yeah. And I was like, look, let me show you.
Look at the dot. It is literally, it's like,
your driving glasses work. Use them.
Use them.
Well, and it was so funny because, I mean, the whole thing of an occluded optic, that's been around since like forever.
Yep.
I mean, but then Steger and Joel and those guys, they talk about occluding the dot like it's the manna from heaven, this wonderful miracle thing. It's like, well, it's been around for a while, and so people kind of mock it a little bit. But then you talk to this lady and she's like, and you tell her this, and she's like, that's a thing. And I'm like, yeah, actually it is. And I'm like, so I just took some tape, I put it over the front of her optic, and I'm like, now look through it. And she's like, what? Yeah, It just blew her mind. It's like, yeah,
when you look at the dot, it's the perfect thing. When you look at the dot, you get nothing. Absolutely nothing. You get the blue screen or black screen and a dot, you see nothing. But when you look at the target, you see as if there was no tape whatsoever. If you've never messed around with it, it is worth doing, because it sounds weird, but then when you actually do it, you're like, oh, I get this. But the worst thing you can possibly do is, like, you get people who get on the dot and then they pull out the dot and like, oh, I don't see it. Is it turned on? And then they're like, okay, so not only that, now this thing that's bright red and that you love so much, please don't look at it, because then it looks like it's bouncing around more. It looks like it's bigger or smaller or whatever. Don't do it. It's
just try it out, see if it works, see what information you get, and then move on. Let's see, from Andy Erickson. USPSA Multi-Gun Nationals is next week in Minnesota, and I'm working it. There is a member meeting Saturday. What would you ask?
Don't ask about Yi-Min Lin.
I would actually, if I
you get escorted out of the room.
Oh yeah, no kidding. if I could ask a question, I would ask the question, why is DNROI not an elected position? And if it's not an elected position, then why is it not a term limited position? Why is DNROI there like on the permanent?
Are they board appointed?
They are board appointed, and they serve at the pleasure of the board
for an indeterminate amount of time.
Pretty much, yeah. Until the board removes them or they quit. But I mean, it does bring up the question. I mean, if we don't want to play the game of an elected official, then why do we have DNROI, who's paid all this money, and he has the sole power to hire and to basically like remove sitting presidents and area directors? Why are we giving them this much power and not having some removal process that
it's like
happens
it's the
through
Supreme Court. Once you're in the position, you can do what you want. You got a lot of power, right?
Well, I mean, it's different than that. It's different than that because you can't. You could be removed if there was a political majority that didn't want you there
on the board.
But the board uses the board that has the majority of it, which is basically 7/9 at this point of it. Basically, can use those positions as a sword and a shield to do their dirty work, and then there's no repercussions on those people because the board then protects their job because they have control. So it's one of those things that does not have enough oversight, and it's kind of one of the faulty things that you would look at as far as there is no way of removing somebody or holding somebody accountable if a majority of the board starts using those positions in that way.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, you can make an argument that DNROI should not be an elected position. I could understand that argument because it becomes a political game, and then you don't necessarily want that. However, there's no reason that we should have somebody who has that much control over the game and the rules of the game to be there in a long-term basis. They should be term limited, or at a bare minimum, we have a whole host of RMIs. Why don't we cycle it between the RMIs?
Yeah, there you go. You have a random cycling of thank you for your 3 years.
You just don't want too much cycling because you want some stability.
Yes. You do. I mean, but that's what I think. A term limit would be a good idea. 5 years. How long is a board member? 6 years?
I think is it
something like that. I think it's 6 years. Yeah, no, it is. It's a 6-year period. So let it be a 6-year period, and then they're term limited out.
Yeah.
Nobody in any organization, government, private or government or anything like that serves a membership is so important that they have to be there for the rest of their lives. They should come in, do their job, and move on.
Yeah. The only way that you would have something like some sort of life term is so that you cannot be influenced by the pressures of the day. But this is a sport in which the membership and the participation of the membership is what drives the sport and what the people want. Like they're asking us surveys about what we want in the divisions, and we get to vote for things. And so this is a cap on what the membership wants.
Yeah, it's just funny how like one of the single most unpopular people in the organizational level of USPSA, there's no way to remove that person by the membership.
But anytime you have like a judiciary, they're going to be extremely unpopular with people for some of the decisions they make, right?
Yep.
There's no doubt about that. Yep. And that's who you're going to hear.
All things that are presented in front of it.
There?
Yeah. All things that are presented in before a job have a plaintiff and a defendant, which means somebody's losing. Somebody's half is going to be pissed.
It's great.
See, but that's the thing. I mean, I'm not saying there's a lot of people that dislike Troy for a lot of reasons, but it still comes back to this idea that is Troy so valuable that he has to be there for the last 20 some odd years or whatever?
Nobody is.
Nobody is. We should limit this thing. And if the board doesn't want to do that, then
we're going to limit this thing.
We're going to limit this thing because we got a hard out. We're 11 minutes past it, so we're going to Z-snap our way out of this bitch. Thanks you for listening, subscribing, and doing all the things that you guys do. Thanks for visiting our sponsors. All of them use promo code PARA10. Get a better belt, get a better holster, get an extra round in the gun. Have a good time doing all that jazz. For Steve Koski, Robert Wyatt, Jared Stepp, I'm Tom Nelson, bidding you peace, love, and soul as we depart onto the open waters of the Sea of Life on a little tugboat we like to call the Paracast.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Good night, everybody.
Dude.
Ba, 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 ba. Wow.